Before filming this video, I had to listen to Rihanna's Umbrella at least once. If you know, you know. Hi there, thank you for joining me on this month's video here on Potter Tongue. This first video of the new year, I will be reviewing a book, and that book is The Casual Vacancy by J.K. Rowling. It's her first book for adults since the Harry Potter books, and I first became aware of this book even before it was released because that was big news. J.K. Rowling releasing a non-Harry Potter book, and even when it came out at my local Barnes & Noble bookshop, I didn't buy it right away. I was very hesitant, and I could call myself feeling betrayed or slighted by her, just feeling childish that how dare she write something not Harry Potter related, and that's actually one of the benefits of this book, that it has no connection to the Potter books whatsoever. But I finally came around to it, came to my senses, picked up a copy at my local bookstore, and by that time all the books they had of it in stock were the paperback editions, so that's what I have. And the illustrated cover is different than the hardback version, which I kind of like because I feel like this picture and artwork suits the story better than what's on the hardback cover book. So that's just my personal preference. But I just want to say right off the bat that I adore this book. I highly recommend it for anyone of age. I'd say realistically, for content matter and what's in it, I'd say suitable for 15 and above, but to really connect and understand with the story, I'd say 17 or older. You'd be mature enough to grasp what this book is about and would more likely speak to you in a certain way. But yes, personally, I would give it 5 out of 5 stars, and let me give you a brief overview of the story without giving out any spoilers, and then I'll talk about the characters, starting with the adults in the book and then the children, because there's no one main character in this book, and that could be a flaw for some people reading it, or that could be a big plus. Breath of fresh air. You don't always get that in a book. You always get that first-person account and that same perspective throughout the entire story. But in this book, it changes from person to person that lives in the little town of Pagford, British town. So the premise of the book is this very important person, Barry Fairbrother, dies of a brain aneurysm one day, and he's prevalent throughout the community, very involved, touched the lives of practically everyone that lived there, and as a result, people's lives change. And I mean, I don't consider it a spoiler, but they change not for the better, at least at first. And the story has 7 different parts. It's broken up into 7 parts. Go figure, J.K. Rowling, 7. And each part isn't its own thing. It's all connective. It's not like, oh, this part is just these separate characters, and then the next part is a different group of characters. The characters you meet at the beginning while Barry was still alive, and we meet and learn more about and follow their lives as everything's unfolding. We follow them throughout the entire book. It's not just isolated sections of the book for certain characters, and that's what I really appreciate about this book. The structure of it is very appetizing for a seasoned reader or a reader that is looking for something fresh and a new style than your typical run-of-the-mill book you might pick up at your bookstore. But let's get into characters. And we obviously know about Barry Fairbrother. He was on the council, the parish council board, basically the leader of the town. There's a parish council of people that are the leaders of the town, and he was a part of that. And his chief political rival, and I'd say also friend, because Barry got along with everyone, was Howard Mullison. Now, Howard, like I said, he was opposed to Barry in certain political issues, and he's married to Shirley, his wife, and they have a son, Miles, and Miles is married to Samantha, and everything seems okay on the surface with them. They seem pretty normal. They're, the ones that find Barry when he goes down in the parking lot of a restaurant when he has his aneurysm, and they ride in the ambulance with him on the way to the hospital. So we're really with them from the beginning, and the doctor that's at the hospital, that not the person that receives Barry, if you will, at the hospital, but is more important in other medical capacities later on in the book, is Dr. Parminder. She's a very successful, well-renowned doctor, and her husband is also a doctor and very handsome, admired by the ladies of the town, and they have 3 daughters. And there's also a vice principal named Colin and his wife Tessa. Colin and Tessa, and they have a son who's very important in the story. And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to keep everything in line, talking about the adults without mentioning their children. But anyways, there's also a bloke named Gavin, and he's having an affair, which seems like a unfair term because it's just a secret relationship that him and Kay, the lady he's involved with, isn't trying to be made known. It's not like he's committed to anyone else, nor is she. She's a single mother with a daughter, and they try and keep things quiet on the down low because he basically wants to move on and not really settle down and make roots with her in Pagford, and she's really wanting to stay with him and make a life with him and her daughter. So they're at odds and ends throughout the book, and that would leave, I'm blanking on this guy's name, but he has 2 sons, Andrew and Paul. Why can I not think of his name? Anyway, we'll get back to him. Let's talk about the children. Now, there's one girl, Crystal Whedon. She's got to be my favorite character of J.K. Rowling's that's been written by her outside of the Harry Potter series. She is a 16-year-old girl that goes to the local school there, and she's on the rowing team. And that rowing team was coached by Barry Fairbrother, and she was really close with him, and really the only person in her life that really saw her as a normal person and believed in her and encouraged her to be someone better than her reputation or what people assumed her life would be like in that regard. So it was a really big loss for Crystal when Barry died, and she has such an unfortunate life. Her mother, Terry, is a drug addict, and she has a son, Robbie, which is Crystal's younger brother, and every once in a while they get a social worker that visits, and Kay, Gavin's girlfriend, is the social worker that is substituting, if you will, for Terry's normal social worker. So she gets to go to their house and see their terrible living conditions and how Robbie is treated, and how the sorry, sad state of things are there, and that Crystal's the one really taking care of Robbie making sure he goes to his nursery, daycare, at least so many times a week, and making sure that Terry doesn't use again because she's supposed to be clean. And the political climate now that Barry has died is that they got to elect a new person to the parish council board, and that board is trying to decide whether or not to shut down Bell Chapel Addiction Clinic and whether it's good or bad, and people are on different sides of that. And this book gets into an election that is a big happening that's going on in the book, and Miles throws his hat in the ring, runs for the position, and then Colin, the vice principal, also decides to run, even though he doesn't have experience and he's not the most sophisticated or well-spoken person. He was very close to Barry, his closest friend, and feels an obligation to pick up the torch and carry on his legacy, if you will, with his policies, and that would be not closing Bell Chapel Addiction Clinic. And then Dr. Parminder actually considers running for a time. But she never actually officially runs. She just makes her position on the matter clear and gets involved in that conversation with the townspeople. Now, let's move on to the children if we can. I talked about Crystal, my favorite character, and then she is friends, or I should say goes to school with Andrew, who is has a crush on her, and another girl named Gaia, who is Kay's daughter. So there's that connection. And then Andrew's best friend with a guy named Stuart, whose nickname is Fats, and Fats is Colin's son. So Fats is the son of the vice principal of the school he goes to, and everyone has a nickname for Colin, the vice principal, and his name is Cubby, and that's explained in the book. But Fats, that's what he calls his father. Cubby, that's the disrespect that he shows to his father, even though we later find out that Fats is adopted, so it's really his stepfather. Calls his stepfather by not just his name, but his nickname that people call him, and they make fun of him. So there's a lot of tension there, but throughout the book, the lives of everyone in Pagford get considerably worse off, with Barry Fairbrother dying, and it's really tragic for a lot of them. I don't want to get into too many spoilers of what happens, but this book deals about not just loss, but the things that we keep to ourselves, not just from the people we live with, our family members, but the issues we have within the families from the greater community that we're a part of as a whole. So there might be a situation of defiance with Fats not listening to his father and goes out smoking and trying to get a girl pregnant and just not being a good kid, good son, and in a just a sudden buildup of anger and emotions, Colin hits his son Fats, and Fats takes to online account on the parish website and posts an anonymous post about his father, and he signs the message as the ghost of Barry Fairbrother, and the accusation he makes is that his father would touch some of the female students at the school that he was vice principal at, and that alone caused not just a strain on Colin's relationship with his wife, Tessa, but also a drop in popularity and ended up costing him the election because Miles wins the election. He gets the spot on the council and he beats out Colin by basically a 2-to-1 margin. So 2 other children do that with their parents. Dr. Parminder gets smeared by her daughter, who has been bullied mercilessly at school by Fats mainly, and she actually harms herself. She cuts herself to deal with the pain and stress and the denigration that she has to put up with being dark skinned and bullying, and she is one of the kids that takes to the online post and makes an accusation against her mother, and that causes her to lose her job basically, or at the very least be suspended. And later in the book, Howard, who sort of becomes a senior figure in the town now that Barry's gone, has a heart attack, and Miles, Howard's son, goes to Dr. Parminder's house to try and, urgently get her in the middle of the night to, perform medical services on Howard, his father, and she refuses. She's like, no, I can't. I'm suspended. I can't help. And that's seen in different lights by other members of the community. But enough about specifics. Like I was saying, this book talks about difficult family relations and how we present ourselves to other members of society that we live with, and the consequences of covering up certain traumas and pain and difficulties that we either refuse to deal with or don't know how to deal with in a healthy, positive way. And this one, I should confess, this is actually a reread for me. I read it originally when I purchased the book all those years ago, and there were so many instances where I was like, oh, I don't remember that at all, or oh, I remember this, it's coming back now. And it definitely was a more emotional read this time around, with a lot of the characters, especially Crystal Whedon and her fate. But like I said at the beginning of this video, I give this book 5 out of 5 stars. It's 503 pages long. The only criticism I would give this book is that J.K. Rowling uses the F word 148 times that I counted, which is way too many, in my opinion. It seemed like she got too anxious having free reign writing for adults, and oh, I don't have to hold back with language and certain things of behavior and subject matter that might be a little crude than she had to with the Harry Potter books because they were for children. So it seemed like she couldn't contain herself in that one regard, but that's a very minor infraction on my part. The story from beginning to end is so well written. I love the structure of it with the 7 parts, and once you read this book, Rihanna's umbrella will never mean the same to you again. So that is my book review on The Casual Vacancy by J.K. Rowling. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't read the book, please pick it up. It is such a good book. It might just change your life. If you have read the book, please leave a comment on what you think about it and give this video a thumbs up. It really supports me and encourages me to continue with this and lets me know that I did a good job. And that's what I strive for. So I love reading. I love this book. J.K. Rowling is my favorite author. End of the video. See you next month.